You can go to the next slide. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ellen Miller-Wolf, and I'm an administrator of Startup425. Startup425 is an alliance of 5 cities on the east side helping businesses, and Kirkland, the city of Kirkland, is the regional manager of that entity. We are also partners in the Innovation Triangle with the cities of Bellevue and Redmond, and that is an effort to recruit business to this region. So we all know that small businesses have difficulties surviving. 60% of them fail in the first 5 years. Underserved businesses, and we mean by that, we mean businesses that don't have formal relationships with advisors. They are often owned by women or minorities or people of color. They lack mentors, they lack networking opportunities. Underserved businesses have limited access to what we call the 3 M's, markets, money, and management. And unfortunately, they are the hardest hit by COVID-19. Startup425, as I mentioned, is an alliance of 5 cities: Renton, Bellevue, Redmond, Issaquah, Kirkland. We are bound by an interlocal agreement administered by the city of Kirkland and funded by KCLS, King County Library System, these cities, and generously by the Port of Seattle. We're also partnering with SCORE and have on many of our programs. Our mission is to provide access to tools that workers that are experienced and entrepreneurs need to go from idea to establishing a working business in a successful, sustainable manner. We lower barriers to entry for non-traditional and first-time founders. That keeps our ecosystem diverse. It encourages collaboration, and it also provides pathways for everyone to the prosperity that is the East Side community. These are some of our courses. Level 1 is the foundations workshops that you all are involved in this evening. Thank you for attending. Level 2 is a more detailed drill down into many of the same subjects with a smaller group of people and more opportunities for participation. And level 3 is what we call our Springboard Accelerator, otherwise known as the Innovation Lab. It's a program that we partner with Bellevue College, and it engages 2 faculty members from their business faculty, along with mentors who are business people from all over the East Side. Every business that's involved in the accelerator has the help of a mentor. It also involves experts, guest speakers, and those kinds of things as well. We are planning to offer it's 7-module class for the month of October in 2021. We piloted it last year in 2020. And COVID-19, our response to COVID-19 was to establish a business response team that we also is known by Startup425, and there are 2 opportunities for you to go into Startup425 and that Startup425 website, which is focused more on COVID resources. We have under contract Business Impact Northwest, which is a CDFI and highly skilled in helping people one-on-one with their business needs as it regards COVID resources, and providing that attention within 24 hours of receiving the call, well, not the call, actually the listing, which you would do as a business on Startup425. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ellen. And now I'll turn it over to our guest speakers, 2 experts in the field of risk management and cybersecurity, Felicia Bunner and Jim Bashode. And take it away.
Alrighty, I'm gonna go ahead and put up a share here real quick. There we go. Felicia, do you want to start this part up?
Sure. So we just kind of wanted to lay out the kinds of things that we're prepared to talk about today. But, before I get into what that is, I just sort of want to start out by saying that this is a conversation. We want to provide information that's going to be valuable to you in whatever stage of your business you're in. And so while we've prepared all these things and we can just talk for the next hour, but I think you'll probably all get most benefit if we just have a conversation and provide you with the tools and all of our time is valuable. So if you've got the questions, let's address them. So with that said, we're going to make introductions. We're going to talk about, what's happening in cyber, what you've probably heard about in the news, some of the things that can hurt your business financially, or some of the things that can help you financially when there is a loss, some of the things that you can prepare for, to maybe make those issues less burdensome financially. And then we'll talk about what a cyber policy looks like. And I think that about does it. What do you think, Jim?
Yeah, pretty close. Let me move something here so I can grab it. There we go. All right, so next slide. This is who we are. I'm with Stratus Technologies, Felisa with Assured Partners. Stratus Technologies provides IT services on a national level for small and mid-sized businesses. We run a 24/7 help desk out of Dallas, Texas. The people at our help desk are going to understand your cultural references and laugh at your jokes. They're very easy to speak with, so that's always a bonus. Felisa, anything quick about yours before we dive in here?
Sure. I am your cyber insurance specialist. I've been doing insurance for the last 15 years and pretty much the entire time been addressing cyber insurance from some perspective. Recently got a designation in cyber risk management. And so talking specifically about some of the things that are emerging in insurance from a cyber perspective right now, are being able to have those conversations with an IT person to help understand the kinds of things that will be asked when you go to apply for your cyber insurance.
Great. And so one of the things that we'd like to do is hear from those of you that are in attendance. It's a huge list, so we want you to keep the responses short, but if we can hear a little bit about who you are, the business you're in, your industry, what you'd like to better understand about the presentation, and also, while we're at it, I'm going to put this in the chat. This is a link to a short form that'll provide us with enough information to do a dark web search on your email address and let you know what kind of exposure you might have. And I'll kick a report out to you within the next 48 hours, depending on when my daughter gives birth. She's in labor. So it's her second. So we'll see how it goes. But anyhow, thanks. Who'd like to go first? Don't all go at once.
I'll jump in, and I actually,
my
email address, my phone number, some passwords have all come up on the dark web thanks to all the data breaches that have occurred. So I've got some experience with all of that.
Okay. Anything you'd like to better understand by the end of this presentation?
Can you stop the cyber breaches?
No. You give your data to too many people for me to stop it. I can tell you when it happens. Now, if we were working with all of the people that are out there, then maybe, but no.
Well, I was the first, one of the first data breaches I was a part of was the Office of People and Management with the federal government. So they have everything related to me, and which made it easier for others to get information on who I am, what I do, and all the pertinent numbers that they like to get a hold of.
Gotcha. Awesome. And that sucks. All at the same time. Stu, Chris, good to meet you in person.
Yeah, it's so nice. Thanks again so much for your help. That was really amazing.
You're welcome.
My name is Chris Hendrickson, and I actually work for the city of Kirkland, and I help market these amazing classes. And so I like to audit each class so that I can learn along with everybody who attends. And you never know, I might just start my own business eventually. So it could pay off.
Always good to have a side hustle at tax time. So,
right.
Stu?
Well, I am a longtime commercial banker in the greater Seattle market, and I just recently accepted a new position with US Bank in their emerging market group where I'm helping smaller businesses. And like the Fed chair who was on 60 Minutes about a week ago, I share in his concern is one of the greatest risks out there for the financial services world or the economy in general is cybersecurity risk. That is his number. I thought it was very interesting to hear his interview and his response, what keeps him up at night. And it keeps me up at night too. It scares me. And I can only imagine. I feel grateful that I work at a large institution that has a lot of controls in place. But as a small business owner and those that I will be working with, I'd like to help guide them to people like yourself that can guide them on how to best protect themselves.
Really
I feel
clear.
like if I can help my clients by providing resources like you, that will be helpful to them. It helps us all.
Really clear. Thank you. Marilyn, are you a participant?
Marilyn actually responded to this in the chat, I think. She is a physical therapist and Pilates
yes,
instructor, and she's starting up her business. So, Marilyn, were there any things, about this that, you wanted to get out of it? Any specific questions or anything that you'd appreciate a focus on, or were you kind of here for a general idea of what to think about? Okay,
Love
no
it.
specific. Gotcha. All right. Well, we will entertain you in the meantime.
All right. So imagine it's Sunday morning, as it was yesterday, day before yesterday, and the sun is shining, the birds are chirping, the sky is bright blue, everything is right in the world. And all of a sudden, much to your surprise, hang on a second here while I dig it up, because who could miss leveraging that video? You walk outside and you realize his house is on fire.
Oh no, this is bad. This is really bad.
So I shot this with my iPhone on Sunday in my bare feet on the sidewalk about half a block from my house. This is a 22-minute video that got edited down to 6, but it took a while for the fire trucks to show up. When they did, I'm kind of jumping forward here. City of Kirkland showed up, Bothell, North Shore, and Woodinville brought their ladder truck out, which was very exciting, although they didn't put up the ladder. So I'm just jumping through here real quick. Yeah, and there's Woodinville's ladder truck. So why do I bring that up? Still hearing the video. Why am I still hearing the video?
So does anyone, oh, sorry, go ahead, Jim.
Okay. I was still hearing the video and I wasn't sure why. At any rate, why I bring that video up is that homeowner who lost everything, that house is a total loss, wasn't planning on that. And they were surprised by it. And all of a sudden their whole world is revolving around, my house is on fire. Now, if you can imagine your house is on fire, the very first thing you're going to want to do is get your loved ones out of the house. And then maybe if you've got time, depending on what's going on, trying to put the fire out, obviously is not going to happen in this case, and maybe grabbing a photo album, because insurance won't replace a photo album, and maybe a couple other things. But that 70-inch big screen you bought at Costco last weekend is going to burn. And just about everything else you have is going to go with it. And then you've got the next steps to take, which are get the fire department on the phone, get them out here, make sure your neighbors' houses are aware so that they're safe, right? And then there's a whole litany of things that go next. And then, you know, once the fire department puts the fire out, now you're dealing with calling your insurance company, notifying your neighbors, notifying your relatives and your friends, calling your boss and saying you might miss work on Monday. You know, we could go on and on and on. There's a whole litany of things that now have to be dealt with because somebody didn't do what needed to be done to start that ended up starting a fire. Now, if you think about it, there's 50 ways your house can catch on fire. 4-year-old with matches, the pilot light going out in the basement water heater like Dean was talking about before we got started, a barbecue on the deck, you know, a pan left on the stove that dried out and caught fire. I mean, there's thousands of ways that a house can catch fire. Now, I bring all this up because it's a great analogy for a cyber breach or a cyber event. You can have an incident where an employee accidentally grabs the wrong spreadsheet and sends it out on a broadcast email to all your clients that happens to have the social security numbers of the 50 employees that your largest client has. And you've now divulged personally identifiable information to 1,000 people. That's a problem. You could have somebody click on an attachment on an email that came in and all of a sudden everything you have is encrypted with a nice message on the screen that says pay up or else. Like these things, your life is going along just fine and all of a sudden everything you have is encrypted. Or all of a sudden you're getting phone calls from people going, why did you send me these social security numbers? Like now you have a fire. Now you have something you have to deal with. You've got to stop the damage. You've got to identify the damage that occurred, and then you've got to figure out how to mitigate the damage and make people whole. Hopefully you have cyber insurance. Hopefully you've got a plan in place for steps to take in an emergency like that. And hopefully you've got some steps in place to prevent it happening in the first place. So between what Felisa provides with the cyber insurance coverage and general business coverage that she offers, and the cyber security approaches that we take inside our business or inside of anybody in my field takes, if you've hired somebody who can provide that service, you would have a complete approach to protecting yourself inside the cyber security world. Does that create kind of the analogy of why I would bring up a house fire? Okay. Is it a good analogy? I thought it was. I don't know. What do you think? Yeah? Okay, good.
Perfect.
Okay, good. So now we have something we can refer back to. So let me get the presentation back up on the screen. This one. All right, next slide. So who has an email address that's like with Hotmail or Yahoo or Gmail? I don't know about you, but when somebody hands me a business card and it says slave for the stang 69 at hotmail.com versus joe@mustangsrus.com, I'm probably going to take my prized vehicle to the @mustangs.com body shop versus the Gmail or Hotmail body shop. Does that make sense? So right off the bat, for me anyway, when I see a free email domain on somebody's business card, it tells me this person's not necessarily serious about being in business. I'm not necessarily going to want to hand them a check or trust them with something that's precious or important to me. And when I say free email isn't free, what I mean is you have no idea how much business that's costing you to have a free email account that you could have paid $12.50 a month for and had Office legitimately in the process. So there's that. Automated offsite backups are critical. And when I say offset, I mean air gap disconnected from your local network. Otherwise, you're not going to have anything to restore your encrypted network from if and or when that happens. That backup should be versioned so that you have in the event that the backup gets encrypted, you can back it up and hit a version of it that wasn't encrypted and restore from that. When you use a next generation artificial intelligence based antivirus, so basically a next gen is a kind of antivirus that doesn't require you to download new definition files on a daily basis. By the time you've downloaded a definition file, you've already been exposed. So the next generation artificial intelligence based antivirus uses more of a, if it quacks like a duck, it walks like a duck, it swims like a duck, it's probably a duck approach. And so it can identify things that are a threat even if it doesn't already know about them. Next is the file sharing tools. Again, so Dropbox is kind of handy and convenient, but it's also free. And the free versions of those sharing tools are not compliant with standards for HIPAA or GDPR, those kinds of compliance guidelines that your particular industry might require. Updates are there for a reason. They're there to plug holes. They're there to fix gaps. They're there to fix problems. They're there to make your machine run better. If you update regularly, it's a little bit at a time. It's not such a big deal. If you do it once a month, you're going to have to wait for a month's worth of updates to happen. That's when you start swearing at your computer and gives you more evidence why you shouldn't do the updates. Not a good idea. Don't click on emailed links for critical services like bank and financial websites. I have seen a Bank of America website, looks just like the real thing. You go, you click, you log in, you enter your credentials. If you enter the wrong credentials, it comes back with a, "We're sorry, please try again. Your account wasn't accurate." Just like you'd expect it to. You enter the correct credentials, next thing you know, you're in your bank account, no problem. Except what you logged into was a fake account that went and used the credentials you entered, tried it out on the real thing. If it didn't work, it kicked back its artificial try again page. And if it did work, it recorded your response and put you on through. Then in 3 or 4 weeks, it'll use your credentials to go in and fleece you for everything you've got. Or do it a little bit at a time over time and make a lot of money off of it until the account access doesn't work anymore. Or any number of other things that Sue could tell you that would make your blood run cold. Yeah. So when you go to your bank or your financial websites, log in manually. Don't click a link in an email. Never open email attachments from unknown senders. If you don't know what it is and you don't know who sent it to you, don't click on it. That invoice from Joe's shipping, pay immediately or we'll send you to correct collection. Click here for more information. Don't do it. The beauty of a phishing email is that it's designed to give you what's called an amygdala hijack. An amygdala hijack is where it gets you to react emotionally and bypasses your logical, skeptical, not sure if this is a good idea part of your brain and just gets you to react emotionally and click away and resolve the concern. So a good phishing email will get you to do that. And so the more emotional you react to the email, the bigger danger that email probably is. Your spouse just filed for separation. Click here for more information. It's a great example. And of course, as always, grammar is a great danger indicator. Who knew?
So I have a question.
Please.
What about text messages?
Those text messages that say, you need to correct your shipping address on your Amazon shipment. Click here now. Those text messages?
Yeah, I got one last night that my UPS delivery.
Yeah, you better click on it or you're going to lose your shipment.
Well, I didn't even open it. I don't know how bad it is.
Don't
even.
Don't.
How do you delete it then? If you
don't need to delete it, you just ignore it.
Okay.
I got one of those too, just yesterday.
Yeah.
They must be targeting us all then. And when
they're obnoxious and they use a whole suite of phone numbers, and blocking the phone number won't really stop it. So just ignore them. Welcome to the new universe. I know people are great. Assume that everyone. That advanced and I didn't want it to. Everyone is a target, including you. And it's not a question of if your organization will be compromised, but when. And no cybersecurity solution is 100% effective, which is why we have a multi-layer defense approach, including the air-gapped offline backups, so that when it fails, we have a keep to run to and restore things. And until you add human beings, every system works great. I used to do fire and life safety. I installed clean agent fire suppression systems in data centers. And what requires those to work is that the doors are closed, because you can't keep the gas in the room if the doors are open. And I would walk into the data center and a door would be propped open with a case of paper. And I'd say, what are you doing? You can't do this. And they would always reply, it's never like this. We were just moving some stuff in and out. No, if it's like that when I walked in, it's always like that. So I would install these automatic door closers with magnetic holds, and the magnets would drop on an alarm condition and the door would shut all by itself, and they'd quit propping it open with paper. So that is a great adage. Systems work great until you add people, and any system that requires people is not a system. Fair? Okay, so I'm going to jump into this next thing. We're going to start to get into Felice's realm here in a hurry, but I was presenting all that to give you a sense of kind of the exposure that's out there. We have a number of things that we do to address that and prevent it. And I'm open to questions as we get a little farther through this. But at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Felisa.
And Jim, I'm going to leave that door open for you to just slide right in with comments and things, because this is very much the kind of forum where these things work in tandem.
Absolutely.
So what we're looking at here are all the main kinds of coverages that a cyber insurance policy can include. Every carrier is different, and cyber liability is not standardized by any way, shape, or form. So each carrier will call these different things. They will offer definitions that do not match up. And so if ever you said, I'm going to go look at a cyber policy, and you get 3 quotes, it's a very difficult task to try to make those all line up. They're never going to call themselves what they are, and there's always going to be nuance to it. So this is the kind of thing that you'll want to work closely with a broker on. There is, a prefix kind of way of covering things, and then there's a carefully thought out process. And one may be better than the other, but that other one's also going to be a lot more time invested. It might also be more expensive. And as a startup, those are the kinds of things that you'll have to kind of talk about what your concerns are. So this is kind of the continuum. You have a cyber event, something is wrong. You have either a ransom to pay or someone has stolen data that's either your personal data, the data of your clients, or the data of your employees. If it is the data of anyone other than you and your employees, then you have a third-party issue where there is liability. Someone has a financial loss due to your inability to protect the data that you keep on their behalf. And the regulatory bodies in each of those industries have very specific requirements that you as the owner of the data are required to provide. So that's the insurance policy will help you to navigate, one, what was lost? Is this a cyber event? And the next thing is, who do I need to talk to determine what was lost and what's the scope of that loss? The next is what fines and penalties are potentially out there, and how do I pay for those? Who do I have to pay if this is a ransomware event to unlock my computer? Is my computer unlockable? And so, a breach coach that is very much a part of what the premium you pay for a cyber policy provides to you, is going to have these resources to connect you with. And most of the time that breach coach is a legal professional who can do this under confidence and connect you to the right people. They often also work with the FBI and with ransomware specialists to negotiate what you pay. And then we have the recovery. All of those things keep you from doing your job and the things that make you money. So while you're dealing with those kinds of issues, you have insurance to potentially help you pay for those continuing expenses while you're navigating the waters of a cyber breach. So I won't get too deep into this unless you all have very specific questions. But these are the kinds of things that will come up as you are negotiating with a cyber insurance broker.
So I have a question about this as well. I'm wondering with small businesses, and I'm not sure how you would define small businesses, but I'll throw it in just a hypothetical, like a company that has 10 employees and makes 10 million in revenues. Would you see that size company buying cyber insurance in lieu of having an IT in-house professional, or do you need both?
100% you need both. Mm-hmm. Not every business will make the decision to have both. But they very much work in tandem. Any cyber liability application that you see is going to ask questions about how you are managing your network, how you're managing data, and the kinds of protocols and risk management that you have in place to help protect the loss of data. And so even in looking at that process, if you are asked for what your controls are and you say you don't have any all across the board, it used to be you could potentially slide through. That after the last year that we've had, underwriters have taken a very strong stance to say you have to have antivirus software. If you have personally identifiable information and personal health information on your network, You should probably have multi-factor authentication for when you log in. And do you need me to unpack what multi-factor authentication is?
I think I might know.
Okay.
That's okay. I don't need that level of detail, but I do think it's interesting, you know, what the underwriters are requiring these days based on what's happened in the last year.
And it's not an in-house IT department that's required necessarily. It can be a third-party specialist like we are, or another company like us.
Okay. Right. I just, yeah, okay. I just was curious, you know, what the trends were, or if there were any, in terms of these small businesses that are just lean and mean, and they can barely, they're just starting to grow. And how do they afford, you know, the insurance with the IT team, but maybe through a third party like yourself, that's a cheaper alternative than having a team on staff to handle these security concerns.
When you look at when you look at the amount of expertise that is required to manage a network to the level of security that a cyber insurance company is going to requires somebody who knows a lot more than how to fix an Xbox. And they're going to require compensation that's far outside of an Xbox budget as well. So you get that kind of experience from a third-party specialist much more so than you'd be able to afford doing it as a full-time, all the way up to a business of 50 or even 100 employees on staff. Once you count the 100,000 in salary and the benefits and the time off, and oh, by the way, they take time off because it's just the one guy, whereas your third-party organization could bring 200 people to bear for whatever thing you've got that happened at 2 o'clock in the morning. So while the guy was on vacation. So it's a big benefit to consider not doing in-house IT over having a third party that can bring their whole organization to bear when it's needed.
Okay.
And that's also not to say that you as the business owner, there should be someone that can speak to where the important information is in the system.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, for lack of a better term, it's garbage in, garbage out. If you don't necessarily know where the crown jewels are in the house that's burning down, to go in and save them, no, you know, firefighter can go in to collect them. You know, if they're not in the safe, if they're not in the fireproof safe, the crown jewels are going down with the ship. It's a really bad metaphor, mixed metaphor. We're talking about a house, not a ship. But you know, you still, as the person who has the important information, need to know where it is and need to be able to tell that third party IT vendor where it is and what needs to be kept safe.
That'd probably be my biggest concern with the majority of our clients, is that they don't practice great data management. So I'll open a folder and there'll be literally 60,000 files in a folder. And it takes a while to scroll through that list, and it may be their primary client folder. It's just bad management of data. I mean, if we could invent a new distinction for modern data librarian or something in a business, where people are actually, as a specialty, dedicated to managing your data in your business, I'd love that. But
yeah, that's a great suggestion.
That's a huge challenge for us.
Yeah, because we're actually dealing with, within the bank I work with, you know, just how we handle information that comes to us internally. It's just, we have to be very careful. It is overwhelming. It's like, well, how do you operate if you can't share this file with somebody, or where do you put this file these days? It's just quite interesting world we live in now.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I also wondered, you know, what you're covering here in your insurance, these are as a result of an incident. But what about incidents that are outside of your client's control? Like I hear about, and also on 60 Minutes a couple of months ago, there was a telecast about how, I'm not sure which entity, I think it was a firewall, got hacked. And as a result, essentially, they think the Russians have control of all the data to everybody. They've got keys to every kingdom, basically, through this hack. And I wish.
Are we talking about SolarWinds?
Yes.
That sounds like SolarWinds. Yes.
Yes.
That was a very interesting hack. And I'm sure, Jim, you can speak to this. What we kind of refer to that as an issue with change management. What happened was, and Jim's going to be able to speak to this more technically, but someone was able to, inside the code of a download for a cyber security program that has administrative access to all of their customers' networks, someone was able to embed that code. And then it came through as an update to the software. And when that happened, the most computer, like IT individuals, check the certificate and say, yes, this came from the vendor, and so we will upload this. And so they uploaded this bad code that had a back door in it. And so it's kind of brought forth this idea of what is safe and what are the other things that we can do to make sure something is authentic before we let it into the network.
So that kind of event, if we find out that was the cause of some breach within your client's world, who covers that loss then? Is it through your insurance policy, or how do you assign the loss?
Right. So, I mean, I am not an adjuster. And so it always depends on the specifics of the loss, the events that led to the loss, and what the adjuster determines is covered and is not covered. There have been a lot of very large claims as a result of the CyberWinds attack, and we will see how widespread it is as these come up. There are many. It's considered that there are a lot of potential issues that we just don't know about. There are potential breaches that we are not aware of yet. Microsoft were the big heroes that came in and shut down the certificates and did a lot of things to alleviate stop some of the bleeding from the loss. But it's rumored that there are still potential things out there, and because that is such a widespread incident, that it will potentially tumble down into some of these smaller businesses. That said, insurance is going to respond, to those where there is a loss, where it is covered. But it's all dependent on what kind of language you have in your policy, what was considered at the time, and what exclusions there might be in that policy.
Got it.
Not all cyber insurance is the same, not even close.
No.
So speaking of that, Felisa, so my commercial insurance policies, I'm having a review mid-May. Cyber insurance is part of it.
Mm-hmm.
What questions should I be asking them if they're all different? How do I get the right information from them?
It's a great question. And it's going to vary by industry. You are providing professional services to other businesses and taking in potentially intellectual property, financial information, potentially their, investment information. So the things that you want to think about for your industry are probably different than someone who's, starting a Pilates, group. So, the things that you'll want to think about are, one, do you have, contracts that have an indemnity agreement that can maybe cap your exposure if something were to go wrong. Do you outsource any of your processing of data anywhere? And if they were to be hacked, would you have a potential financial loss, because you are depending on other vendors for some of your work. And then, what I usually ask is what are you concerned about? Like, what are the things that you want to make sure are covered? When you think about the house burning down, what can you not live with? What would you need to have tucked under your arm as you leave the building?
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Well, all my data is at Microsoft, so it should be secure, right?
Office 365 is not backed up. Not inherently. You have to do that separate.
Yes, I know. Thanks, Felicia. I appreciate that.
Sure.
I may be calling you.
Sure.
This just actually happened to the city with a vendor of ours. A vendor of ours got attacked with ransomware, and it was our utility billing vendor. And so it was crazy. And, we had to tell our community members that, well, we don't know if there's a potential data breach. Like, it took them a really long time to investigate it and then figure out if the incident included our data. And I mean, it was wild. And luckily it didn't. There's a huge investigation. But I mean, at the end of it all, that vendor lost us as a client because we had to obviously switch vendors. So it's, bad.
So let's unpack all of those things that happen right there and talk about maybe here on this left column of the screen, right? Data was lost. What do? You call your breach coach. What do? They call a forensics person.
Yeah.
And so what they did was, that's what they were doing, was figuring out, okay, who got hacked, whose information got lost. Okay. And so that was your waiting time. And then they lost you as a client. In the policy, there is a crisis management expenses that will allow you to hire a PR firm, and that will help you restore your name and potentially reattract your clients to help you figure out how to move forward, what things to implement in your system, and how to talk about what you've made changes to, so that you can
will never happen again.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's another thing too. Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, but many times, if there is a breach, and that information ends up on the dark web, oftentimes the breach that occurred can happen again, because on the dark web, people are talking about how that breach went on. And especially with automation and the kinds of software that are being used to do these kinds of hacks, it is likely that they will happen again if they're not handled carefully and correctly.
The other thing to be aware of is that in these kind of breaches, the data that's lost will typically sit in situ for 2 or 3 years before it's finally released for sale on the dark web. The giant Equifax breach that happened a few years ago, that data would just now be coming up on the dark web for sale.
Dang, that's
Because
crazy.
you're watching for it when it happens. But Equifax wasn't even on your mind until I said it. That's what makes this now valuable, is that they have all these logins and passwords for sale that are nice and ripe and haven't been mined yet, that have been sitting there for a couple of years dormant. Now we can release that into the wild and go for it and sell it as many times as they can. So that's fun.
So any other questions or anything that this slide is kind of bringing up for you all? Because I think we can move on.
Okay.
All right.
Well, there's animations on here. Very exciting.
Sorry, let's.
These are very important, so pay attention.
So we covered a lot of these, right?
So as a recap,
There you go.
Oh my goodness. Wow. There's a lot of these. I should have tried this before I ran it. My bad. Next slide.
All right. So this is really talking about, high level overview, first party expenses, which is your out of pocket expenses when a loss occurs. So we talked about business income. This is your continuing expenses while you're down. Insurance can provide coverage for that, depending on what the policy says and what your concerns are. And that's something that you should talk about with a broker. Notification and credit monitoring, crisis management, that's the PR firm that's going to help you. The notification and credit monitoring is really to comply with regulatory requirements. The Attorney General is going to require that you provide 12 months of credit monitoring and provide notice that someone's data has been accessed. Then we have data asset restoration. We talked about the forensics, the legal, and the compliance. All of those are third parties, other people, not systems or software that you'll need to help you see through this kind of event. And then cyber extortion and ransomware. We're not seeing a whole lot of breaches that don't entangle in those two things lately. And so making sure that you have an ample limit for something like that will help see you through. Any questions on that? Okay, great. I get that. So these are just some statistics. I got this from the Chubb Cyber Index. And if you literally just go to chubbcyberindex.com, Chubb are a very good carrier that have been doing cyber insurance for a very long time, and they have a robust amount of information and statistics. They can break this down by industry, by your estimated annual revenue, and they can tell you on average what the claims costs might be, what the percentage is for one thing over another. This slide is for basically any business worth 25 million or less, global. This is kind of the general last 3 years. This is where the expenses have been. And you'll notice that all of these services are services that are provided by other people. So credit monitoring, notification call centers, your PR and crisis response, forensics team, all of those things are costly. The forensics, very much so, and time consuming. And for the price that you pay in your premium, you have discounted and vetted vendors to help you through this. Next slide, please. So this is averaging out what those payments look like as well. And again, you'll see the forensics can be very expensive because that is where you're going to determine where the loss is, how much data was accessed, and potentially where where they've been in the network. All right. Then these are just a couple of reasons that small businesses are vulnerable. We've talked about a lot of this already. You don't have a very large budget to hire an IT professional, and as Jim said, they take vacations. They're people too, and there's a lot of expense with that. You might be in a position to have a lot of clients, have a lot of information that passes through your network that can be valuable to a hacker. We see with personal health information, a lot of people who are struggling financially still need to see doctors, and this is an expensive way for them to pay someone so that they can spoof your information and use your medical insurance. The centralized IT infrastructure, that one's a little harder to unpack. But with a lot of these large attacks that have happened, especially healthcare and specifically have been targeted the last year or so, there's a lot of information in there, and there are a lot of very large, very, very savvy professionals that are investigating and trying to get into those to get that information.
Just to clarify on that bullet, centralized IT infrastructure might originally come up for you as, oh, well, it's like the big server room and everybody's cubes in the office. That's not what that means. That means like Dropbox. And one person gives up their credentials to your shared Dropbox account, and all of a sudden somebody has access to everything that you all are sharing. One person gives up access to their global admin credentials for your Office 365 tenant, and all of a sudden that person has access to all of the email accounts. And if you have access to somebody's email account, you can get access to just about anything, because all the forgot my password links go to your email account. So if you have access to email, you know who they bank with, you know who they're talking to, you know what big deal they're working on. You can just sit there and watch the emails come in and read them, learn them, and then figure out where to go to work. So that's a centralized IT infrastructure, is the cloud. And all of y'all working at home on your kid's computer or on a computer that your kid also uses for their Steam games, but you're using it to log into your work computer on the VPN like it's safe. That centralized IT infrastructure is a huge exposure. And even if you're not doing it, you don't know that George, who worked in the next department, isn't.
Thank you for that, Jim.
Sorry, I don't mean to tell horror stories around the campfire. That's just my day all day long. So sorry.
Yeah. And to sort of circle back with staff training, we talked about all systems are fine, until you add humans. We're clicking all day long. We're clicking without thinking about it, and that's again that amygdala hijacking that Jim was talking about. We need to train ourselves and train our employees on what to look for, because the more that we can keep it top of mind, the more thoughtful people will stay. And it has to be something that happens over time. You can't just say, okay, once a year, we're going to have everybody, read this long thing or take this quiz that's going to be an hour of your time, once a month, or you have to drip this kind of thoughtful content to people to stay top of mind. And there are some really great free things on LinkedIn and Facebook that you can subscribe to that will have those mindful moments of creating some room for cyber hygiene. And then also, the people who are, managing the business have other things to do, likely, in a small business other than managing cyber hygiene, and where the assets are and are they secure. They're probably also paying employees, and they've got their own clients, and there's a lot of different hats that one person is wearing, and it's
and
impossible.
A 9-year-old in the next room they're trying to keep in school. So
and that so it's something that small businesses are suffering from for all of those reasons, and also because these are highly automated these days. It's like coming into an apartment building and checking all the doors to see which one is unlocked. That is what is. It's not even a person doing it; it's a robot. So this is just kind of reiterating, those vulnerabilities. If you're posting private information online, you have ransomware or cyberware. You release information you shouldn't. Lose a laptop, smartphone, or an employee can be enticed to, for money, provide others with information that's valuable. I wanted to show this mostly because these are certain things to think about from a risk management perspective. To the right, that's what a ransomware attack can look like. This is some of the messaging that you might see if you ever have a ransomware attack. They, of course, all look different, but these are the kinds of things that might show up on a screen if your computer has been accessed and locked down. Investing in IT assets like what Jim provides can help you to also work on a business continuity plan and crisis response plan. Also, for the premium that you pay, there's often discounts for vendors that can help you do this as well as part of your cyber insurance. Staff training, there's also often discounts for those kinds of things. And Jim, am I correct that you have a vendor that you work with to do those things as well?
We do several kinds of cybersecurity training with phishing testing on a regular basis. My favorite is when you do the click and you get rickrolled for doing it. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Because we're never going to give you up and never going to let you down. But then there's also regular trainings and testing. We do blind testing and then come back to the principals of the agency and say, this is how your staff did. What do you say? Shall we start doing some training? And we can do metrics. So yeah, we'll also do social engineering testing. Call up and figure out how to get to your email box through your front desk. That's fun. Or even physical penetration. So we'll see how far into your building we can get unauthorized. So with a permission slip, of course. So.
And I would also say that if you're going to do any of those tests, if you're going to go into any of this, I would recommend doing so through your counsel, through your attorney. So that anything that is a result of it is more likely to be held in confidence. So that if for some reason it takes a long time, and it takes a long time to respond to the results of penetration testing, the results of a dark web scan, and trying to close all of those gaps. If you have investors, if you have others that could point to a decision made by management not to respond to that, better to have that under client attorney privilege. It's not, 100% bulletproof, but it's a good practice. And then for all of the things that you try to protect, ahead of time, you can't do it all. And that is what insurance is here for. So the things that will be the hardest to lock down, those are the things that you should talk to your insurance broker about protecting, and what it's worth to you. And you'll always pay a premium for something that's hard to protect. But I always think of it as, I'd rather pay a known amount for something that could go very, very wrong, as opposed to roll dice and have it be something that would put you out of business. So
it's not only the value that it is to you, but what would the value be to your clients whose data you lost?
That's a good point.
Yeah. Next slide.
Yep. And these are the 5 common things that I hear when I talk to someone and they say they don't have insurance. They don't know what's at stake. They don't think that they'll be targeted. And like we said, a lot of these are automated. They're not even being targeted. It's just happening. They think that the cost is too high. They, have government immunity. Or they've hired a third-party IT vendor. He's got it completely under control, and he most likely does. But things happen. And like I said, garbage in, garbage out. If he doesn't know something and you forgot to tell him, what's that worth?
And that bonus reason, our contract actually requires our clients to have cyber insurance.
Mm.
Yeah.
Do you have an estimate of how much, what percentage of small businesses have cyber insurance currently? Do you have a sense for that?
Gosh, I don't. I think that that would, I think, be pretty hard to quantify.
I'll say that most of the clients we pick up don't have it before we have them. I would guess most businesses don't until they get a problem or until somebody forces them to buy it. But very few people do it on their own.
Especially in a startup phase. Mm-hmm. Unless it's usually someone has a contract somewhere that's requiring it. And not all IT third-party vendors do require it.
In fact, I'm pretty sure we're pretty unique in that regard. So, in this area.
Yeah.
Your next is suggested links.
Yeah. So I wanted to throw this up there just because this is some self-study that you can do. I mentioned the Chubb Cyber Index. Their cyber library has videos and extensive information that's industry specific, that kind of unpacks a lot of stuff that, into bite-sized pieces. A lot of those, links are maybe 5 minutes long, if not less. So some really good information there. The Crybrary was developed after the WannaCry attack happened, and some good glossary of terms to kind of help you wrap your mind around some of the more technical language that comes with cyber. The Small Business Association has great information, great tools and tricks for emerging businesses. And then if you are at the point where you are ready to think about vulnerability scanning, assessment, and reviews from others, that the CERT CISA can do that for free. Of course, like I said, you might want to do that, with your counsel in mind. And there are people like Jim that can do this, that are already understanding, what it is. But having a second sort of set of eyes or a second look is also helpful.
We lost our banker.
Uh-oh.
All righty. And then this is the final bit, is us.
Yeah.
And all of these links I just put in the chat. So if you want to look for them, there they are. You can just quick copy the chat and save it for yourself.
Thanks for that, Jim.
Yeah. Any other questions, Chris or Marilyn? Okay.
No, I'm good. This was really great.
Good. Well, you
Marilyn,
have our
anything for you?
contacts.
Go team. Kick.
Well, this has been great. I greatly appreciate you guys taking the time out of this beautiful evening to join us. And it's been a wealth of information. In fact, a little bit overload, but it's having been the victim of multiple breaches. It's something that's always near and dear to my heart. So I absolutely applaud the two of you for what you do and trying to keep us safe. And I appreciate that you guys were the capstone to our 6-part series.
Always appreciate the opportunity. Always happy to come back.
Yes.
Cool.
Ditto.
Well, great.
All right. Well,
We
Jim's got to go
appreciate
get to dinner.
Apparently.
Hey, Simone, good to see you. All right. Well, have a great evening, everybody. Thank you for attending, and enjoy the rest of the night.
Cheers.